Seeking a fresh feed, this mob's heading to a new paddock.
It may look all right, especially when you're looking out into the background of the film, but we're in a 650mm rainfall area and we've had 300 mils.
In the central west of New South Wales, Nigel Kerrin's been adjusting to the dry.
Our destock started in March and we've been destocking, and our last load of animals went out yesterday morning, and that's it for us now. We're down to where we want to be as far as breeding numbers go.
It's not just the weather that this sheep breeder and cattle trader must contend with.
It's a culmination of a perfect storm, what's going on at the moment. You've got oversupply, you've got the market crashing, you've got low labour in processing plants, and interest bills that have grown. The interest bills weren't a problem until the market collapsed. The other big one is the fear that's been created by this El Nino prediction. I've never had to deal with that one.
He's not alone. Australia's sheep industry is in trouble.
It's crazy how it's just turned up where most businesses expanded in the last, 7 or 8 years. All our budgets told us to go like hell. Great idea, grow your business. But now it's turned around with a commodity now that's only worth 30% of what it was. It's making it very, very tight to meet those financial commitments in businesses.
Australian sheep and mutton prices have plummeted this year. Average price indicators have fallen by as much as 80%. It's been a steep learning curve for Tanner Morris, who's completing a uni placement at the Kerrin's Pol Merino stud.
I'm just starting off my career in ag, and it's pretty mind-blowing how quickly things can change with even just 6 months. I think it is uncertain, I think is the word. People are not so sure what they should be doing with stock, especially with prices wise. Yeah, I think the word is uncertain.
Right at the moment, there's not a lot of ways to run. And this is the third downturn I've seen in sheep and cattle. And every time you look back at it, it was really bloody ugly whilst you're in it. And if it happened to coincide with drought, then that made it even worse. And for me, it's just here we go again.
In the sale yards, the story's no better.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. There's no doubt about that. There's probably no real need to sugarcoat it. It is what it is. 322 in the lead of the Merino weather.
Stock agent Martin Simmons has been working out of Dubbo for the best part of 3 decades. After a run of strong seasons and record high prices, he says this year the market dropped further than anyone anticipated.
We're coming off such record highs, and that's probably been the toughest pill to swallow.
In 2021, at the market's peak, national lamb prices were pushing $10 a kilo.
Now, you're very fortunate if you're $4 a kilo, and a lot of lambs are probably making $3 a kilo. So when you start to work it out like that, it's a significant drop.
I got 11, 12, $12 bid.
I noticed one pen there today, $15 a lamb.
And to be honest with you, today it's actually a little bit brighter. So you go on last week's market and they could have made $5.
115, he goes to the last.
In the current climate, we'll take whatever improvement we can get.
They'll head back into a paddock to fatten before meat processing. Since the drought broke in 2020, the number of sheep farmed for meat and wool has grown 23% to 79 million, creating Australia's largest flock in more than 15 years. As pastures dry out and drier times are forecast, more sheep are being sent to market.
Everyone had fully destocked by the end of 19 because we had experienced a 3-year drought around here. So everyone sort of went hammer and tong. They had plenty of feed about them, so they bought in a heap of numbers. And now obviously the demand is not there for them, yet they've still got to do something with them. So it's purely supply and demand, and our game's never been any different.
Martin Simmons worries that without rain, farmers could be forced to make difficult decisions.
Fortunately, so at the minute we haven't got to a point of destroying on farm, which is good. Are we going to get there? Look, if there's not an improvement in the season, probably, and again, unfortunately, that's just being realistic. But it's a scenario we have been faced with in the past. Even in my time, I can recall in the early 90s, I'm Warren, born and bred. You know, we shot all our sheep in the early 90s. They didn't have a value. So, look, are we far from there? Probably not, unfortunately.
There's about 33,000 sheep farmers in Australia, and it's difficult to know how many are killing stock on their farms. Nobody keeps data about these things, but industry groups say they're hearing from farmers who say the prices are so low they feel they've no option but to shoot their sheep.
Boys, good boys, right, are we ready to go? But there is an issue with people with a lot of sheep on their farm, and there's nowhere to sell them. Our markets have got very inflexible.
Lucy Anderton is a farmer and agricultural economist from WA's Great Southern region. This year, she's contemplating something she's never done before.
Yeah, we possibly won't make a proportion of our ewes as a way of reducing our numbers, but because we can't actually sell those ewes, because if we did, we wouldn't get much price for them. So we're just looking at our options.
She says the market to supply stock to the East Coast has fallen away, and there are too many animals hitting the supply chain all at once.
So the supply chain just really hasn't been as efficient as it could be, I suppose, and so which is disappointing because it's not market driven. It's actually a supply chain issue more than anything. We rely on the live sheep trade to create competition in the marketplace, and that's where New South Wales and Victoria have a lot more competition in the marketplace than we do, and that's a big difference.
Since 2019, Australia hasn't exported live sheep to the Middle East during the hot northern summer months, condensing the trade into a shorter window. Then there's the federal government's promise to ban all live sheep exports by sea, a trade which operates entirely from Western Australia. No date's been set for the end of the trade, but with confidence already low, some farmers say they're no longer inclined to invest in an industry that doesn't have a future.
Obviously, that's going to create some uncertainty in the market, and farmers are going to be unlikely to want to invest in that market when it's not going to exist in however many years.
The government's commodity forecaster recently told a Senate committee the impending ban hasn't contributed to the current downturn.
Our assessment would be that's not the case. There's clearly, the underlying drivers in these markets are related to climate, supply, the rebuilding of the national herd and flock. We're seeing the same impact on prices in the east as we are in the west. We've seen still a number of the live export avenue is still open. We're seeing producers still access that avenue as a way to turn off animals.
In September this year, national mutton prices reached their weakest point since 2007. For trade lambs, it was the lowest point since 2014. There've been some gains, but with the flush of spring lambs coming into the market, there's no doubt the pressure is on.
Supply has been the number one driver in every region, and at a national level, the increase in supply has been what's driving mutton and lamb prices.
Analyst Steve Bignell expects up to 23 million lambs will be slaughtered in Australia this year, producing a record amount of meat.
We do know processors are working as hard as they can. We know that they're moving to Saturday shifts and double shifts where they can, and processors will process the animals provided they have the supply and it makes economical sense.
Low prices at the farm gate are helping consumers at the checkout. In September, retail lamb prices had dropped 9.5%. The cheaper it is in the shop, the more Australians tend to eat, and lamb consumption is up about 14% on last year. Shanks alone up 200%. Those figures are likely to grow.
Price flow from sale yard prices through to retail takes about 8 months for both cattle and for sheep.
With up to 70% of the lamb produced in Australia sold overseas, international customers will be key to boosting farmer returns. But already some countries are reporting stockpiles of meat.
Well, we're processing records number of sheep at present, but we're going into markets that's full. And, we've got to wind ourselves out of that. Now, I can understand that on our side. We're not paying enough money, but the consumer's not paying it on the other end around the world. And, we got the product we're processing is completely different to the store market, which the farmer takes home and grows them into animal.
Having started out as a drover more than 50 years ago, Roger Fletcher and his family have built one of Australia's largest sheep and lamb producing, processing and exporting businesses, now selling into about 80 international markets.
We have our wheat farms, cotton farms, sheep farms, feedlots. We process the animals through the plants. We've got our transport system to the ports, and we export directly all over the world. So it's a long chain, and never all of them run as perfect. How are they going?
What's happening in the sheep market now, he says, is different.
I've never seen it in my lifetime of so many things unfortunately going wrong together. You know, we had interest rates going up, electricity costs going up, and all these things sort of coincide.
While more sheep need processing, the meatworks can't get enough labour. The global economy is in a funk, and the effects of the pandemic are still being felt.
COVID caused a huge debacle within the shipping industry, and stuff got locked up at ports, couldn't get off. Products were taking 4 months to get to their destination. The customers were begging for it because the proceeds were subsidised in those countries. And then when the subsidies went off, shipping improved. All of a sudden, there was a huge amount of products landed in these countries, and it's just slowed everything down. We went backwards at a huge rate. Those sheep and lambs now are built up, and we got a recession around the world, which is trying to buy less product, and we're trying to serve more product into there. Our kills last year were down probably 25 to 30% for beef and sheep, and this has had a huge effect. I got confidence that we'll be right.
Perhaps it's because the horrors of the drought are so fresh in memory. Many of the people Landline spoke to for this story have suggested the weather forecast has spooked farmers into selling stock early, adding to the oversupply.
I go back to my early days when we'd look at ring round the moon and we'd say rain in 3 or 4 days, or we'd say, you know, the moon's in the right shape, or the ants are working. And there was always hope there we were going to get some rain. Today, I think the forecasters have probably done a very good job, and unfortunately, they're putting a hell of a lot of fear into people. And I mean, I'm not blaming them for being good at their job. It's, but it is making people very frightened.
But the former drover, turned global exporter, is confident the industry will ride out the hard times.
And there's great opportunities out there today. I mean, in all the bad years when I first started and put stock on the roads and take a punt, I always took an advantage when no one else was buying. And I think there's great chances to improve our flocks, to do things forward. But yes, it's challenging times.